Alright guys, what's up? I'm very excited to bring you guys this video. I've been working on it for quite a little while here. We are doing a types tier list. I love doing these tier list videos. I've done one other one on the channel and I've gotten a lot of requests to do more. Yeah, it's very popular. So here we go. We're going to do a types tier list. We're going to evaluate every type in Yu-Gi-Oh! Starting with the oldest over here to the newest. So I did it this way. It was sorted alphabetically originally. It's easier this way. It looks better. So let's get started. First off, we have Spellcaster. Alright, so Spellcaster is the oldest type. I put it personally in S tier. There are 525 Spellcasters. A lot of good Spellcasters over the years. They are a very consistently good type. Stuff like Invoke. There's a Spellcaster engine. You have cards like Droll. Very good Hand Trap is also a Spellcaster. Obviously you've got all of the Magician stuff. We're talking about the Pendulum Magician stuff, the regular Dark Magician stuff. We've got spell books. They have a lot of just crazy spell support, and recently you have the Enderman deck, which has been really good. So generally spellcasters have been really pretty solid type over the last 15 or so years. Very good, definitely S tier. And also a lot of good just extra deck monsters or spellcasters. Other than that, you have to also remember in the early game, you've got stuff like Gravekeepers. They dominated the meta for a while, both in like 2004, 2005 era, and later on they again came back around 2014, and Gravekeepers again were pretty prevalent in the meta. You've got Necro Valley to support them, but definitely spellcasters have been really good in the meta. And you always can't forget Exodia, which had some areas where it dominated, and you got to remember how many cards are on the ban list because of Exodia. So definitely S tier, without a doubt. Spellcasters is one of the best types in the game. Next up, we've got another S tier, Dragons. I hope this is Dragons because it looks Dinosaurs and Dragons look similar, but Dragon, definitely without a doubt S tier, without a doubt. A lot of extra deck monsters. Just look at your extra deck. A lot of the good monsters in there are dragons. Like, dragons have always been within your extra deck in some shape or manner. There are 502 dragons in the entire game, which is actually, pretty big. But you have to remember, a lot of the boss monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Have been dragons. You have things like the big Chaos Dragons. You have things like Dark Arm Dragon. You have all of the extra deck dragons. You've got the Synchros, all of the character boss monsters like Blue Eyes, which was very prevalent in the game just recently, about 3 years ago. You've got stuff like Crystal Wing. Just look at an extra deck; it's guaranteed to have dragons. Additionally, outside of that, there have been really good dragon archetypes like Chaos Dragons, like Elemental or Dragon Rulers. Also, Blue Eyes, which was very prevalent all throughout Yu-Gi-Oh! Dragons have been, pretty good, and they're going to be probably really good going forward. They might actually be the best type in the game, just because of how much support they've gotten over the years. So definitely dragons have to be up there. All right, next up we've got zombies. Zombies I'm putting in B tier. There are only 190 zombies, which surprised me when I looked up the statistics, which is really not a lot. Like, Warriors has the most, and it's almost like 900 cards, and Zombies only have 190, but they're very good. They dominated right around kind of the early to middle game, and then they fell off for a really long time. But Zombies were really good. Right around like 2006, that's, I'd say, where their peak is. That's when they had Ill Bud, which let them special summon from the graveyard. You had stuff like Pyramid Turtle, which is the best battle phase searcher in the game at that time, because you had stuff like Giant Rat, Flying Kamakiri, UFO Turtle, but by far Pyramid Turtle was the best because it let you special summon a monster with 2,000 or less defense, and most zombies had low defense, so you could basically summon any big boss monster, Vampire Lord, or Ill Bud, or any of the others. It was kind of crazy. That was by far, they just for no reason made that the best battle phase searcher. All of the other ones were based on elements, and this one was based on a type, and then the only other type based battle phase searcher was UFO Roid, and it was awful because it required a tribute. But definitely that, like, the middle game was dominated by zombies. Later on they had Plague Spreader Zombie, which was just crazy. You had like Plague Spreader exclusive cards that were very good. But it had a lot of dry spots, which is really why it is in B tier and not A tier or S tier. Also, there's just not that many zombies. More recently, the more positive things that have been going for zombies is the Zombie World deck. You've had it mixed with Light Sworns, with the 60 card Light Sworns from a couple years ago, which was really good. And of course, you can't forget a lot of hand traps or zombies. You've got, you know, Ghost Bell, you have Ash Blossom, and you have Winter Cherries, which are all three are really good cards, have affected the meta immensely, and they are of course zombies. But other than that, I just think they have a kind of a lacking just total pool, because a lot of the S tiers just have there's a huge amount of cards, which sets them aside. But definitely B tier, very good, very solid. All right, next up we've got Warrior. This is the largest type in the entire game. It's got 864 cards. Just insane. 864 monsters are warriors in this game, more than anybody else. As a matter of fact, if just 10% of warriors were good, that means that there would still be more good warriors than there would sea serpents, because there's only 64 sea serpents. There's so many cards that you're bound to have at least some really broken ones. And warriors have basically dominated the game forever. All types of different cards. You had the warrior toolbox early on. You had Rhoda, which searched any monster below 1500 attack, which is kind of crazy. Which searches like so many warriors. Warriors are just so easy to print, so easy to make. You had Blackluster Soldier. Basically, you give any person a weapon, and you've got a warrior. It's just the easiest card. It's a card type to make. You don't have to go through a crazy design. You had the DD series, you know, the DD Warrior Lady, stuff like that. But yeah, definitely the entire Warrior toolbox kind of dominated the game for a very, very long time. Additionally, later on you had things like Elemental Heroes that came in. Elemental Heroes, of course, came with all of their undertypes, which were Destiny Heroes, which had Malicious, stuff like that. You had stuff that came in like the Masked Heroes and Vision Hero. I mean, it doesn't end. There was just so many heroes that came out afterwards, and a lot of them were very good, like Stratos, like Malicious. You also had more recently Isolde, which completely broke Warriors for like 4 formats, and you just kept having variant after variant of Goki and just Phantom Knights and various warrior decks. So definitely warriors have broken the game throughout. Again, it's a contender for the best type. I think Dragon overtakes it just a little bit, only because no matter what you do, the boss monsters are always dragons, whereas warriors are more of support cards and kind of optional. But definitely warriors are up there. Again, they are the largest type in the entire game. Even if like 10% of them were good, they'd still have more good cards than sea serpents. Like, it's just crazy. But definitely up there. All right, next up we've got Beast Warriors. I am putting Beast Warriors into B tier. Beast Warriors have kind of, for a long time, were ignored and weren't really that great. And then they just kind of got fixed right around, I'd say like after 2012, they started kind of making better cards for them. First of all, Fire Formation Tenki is an amazing card. Searches any Beast Warrior that's level 4 or lower, which is really, really good. Additionally, you know, it gives them 100 attack, which isn't really that big of a deal, but it's you know, it's something. It's also a +1, so that card coming out was like huge. On top of that, you know, Fire Fist coming out, they dominated the game for a long time. You had X-Sabers, Zodiacs were amazing. A lot of Bujins are, of course, Beast Warriors. So definitely Beast Warriors are a solid type. They're not quite broken and don't have a ton of cards. Beast Warriors only have 188 monsters, which is, you know, kind of close to zombies. But again, they also had stuff like Lunalights, which is just kind of a crazy OTK engine nowadays for a lot of decks. Yeah, 100% they deserve to be right around. This is the perfect spot for them. They could definitely use some support. They don't have a lot of cards printed. All 3 of these have above 500, whereas these only have like closer to 190 and 188. Which is problematic. They definitely need more support, but Zodiacs, for example, dominated the meta for a very long time. I think one more good beast warrior type would put this into A tier, and maybe like 2 more would definitely put it into S tier. But incredibly good, not to mention all the gladiator beasts that are also B tier. But of course gladiator beasts are split over a few different types, but definitely beast warriors are very solid. Alright, next up we've got regular beasts, not beast warrior. These are just regular beasts. There are 300 regular beasts printed. I'm putting them into C tier. They would be actually in D tier if it wasn't for the rescue monsters. That's the only reason I'm putting them into C tier. They really do need more support. I don't think there's even really a type, like an archetype of beasts, because every time there is an archetype of beasts, like they have like beast warriors sprinkled throughout, and the beast warriors are actually better than the beasts, for example like Boojins. But yeah, the only reason I'm putting them in C tier instead of D tier is because of the rescue monsters: rescue ferret, rescue cat, rescue rabbit, definitely. So the only reason I'm even putting them is because of those 3 cards. 2 of them just broke Yu-Gi-Oh for many years. The rescue rabbit made XYZ summoning so easy because all you had to do was tribute it, summon any 2. It kind of made it crazy. It had to get banned. And rescue cat wasn't once per turn, and it was just broken. We definitely couldn't have that back. Yeah, definitely rescue cat was just way too crazy. But now, now it's back because, they changed the effects just a little bit. They gave it an errata, and now it's a lot more of a healthy card. Other than that, like notable mentions would be stuff like Elephant, Gallus the Star Beast, kind of like the new rank 3 kind of engine, stuff that helps you make Materia Beast, which also happens to be a beast. The problem with beasts is that they have just really like good cards, but not really even an archetype. So I'd say C tier is about fair for them. They could definitely use a solid archetype. Again, if it wasn't for like some of these really good cards, they would very quickly be in D tier. But I can't argue with the fact that the rescue monsters really saw a lot of meta play and changed the game. Alright, next up we've got wing beasts. I put wing beasts into C tier also. There are 255 different wing beasts. Again, they're decent. I'd say they definitely need more support. There are some good generic cards for them. Stuff like DD Crow. There are really good archetypes, like the good the good gladiator beasts, for example, are wing beasts. You had stuff like Black Wings, which were very good in the meta for a little while. Harpy Ladies, which are starting to really come up recently. Very good against a lot of back row decks. Very good at spamming. Very good at summoning Lightning Chidori. Stuff like that. Definitely could use more support, but I wouldn't say it's horrible. It's like unusable. Kind of like some of the D tier ones that we're gonna get around to. But definitely, wing beasts, I say, they're decent, but they could definitely use some work going forward. All right, next up we've got Fiends. Definitely very solid A tier. 587 different kinds of Fiends in this game. Solid type. The only reason I'm not putting it in S tier is because it was a little weak in the beginning of the game. It's been crazy late. Like after 2000 and after 2010, Fiends went nuts. But like in the early game, you had a few decent Fiends here and there. Sangan was definitely by far the best Fiend. But after like 2010, they started just hitting the crazy cards. Dark Worlds, for example. You had stuff like Burning Abyss, Dark Worlds, DDDs. Demise. This is one of the earlier. It was probably in like 2006-7 is when Demise came around. This is the ritual deck. Demise, very good. King of Armageddon, that came out then. But in the early game, it was kind of lackluster. It's developed a lot. You had Infernities also, Infernoids. Definitely, this is a type that started out not that great, but Konami made some really positive changes. It was something that I could even put in D tier at the beginning. But because the monsters were always too small, and the big monsters were stuff like Archfiends, and they had just these horrible costs. Like Archfiends were just awful because you had to like pay life points, you had to roll dice. It was like what are we doing here? But they really cleaned up Fiends over the years, and they've become a really good type as of recently. Definitely a huge comeback story. Fiends very good now. Used to be crap. but definitely A tier, very close to being S tier. Like this is like 8.8 like it's like right in the middle. It's very good. Definitely very good. All right, next we've got fairies. There are 379 fairies. You know, pretty populous. Putting it in A tier. Fairies are a lot like fiends. Like they weren't like really that good. Like they had a few good monsters. They had like Air Knight Parashath and maybe a few others in the early game, but this is a type that really started getting good. I would say same thing right around like after 2009 going forward, it started getting really good because it got support in Light of Destruction. It got Honest, and Honest just kind of broke like light decks in general, but fairies, because fairies could search it. But very good. You have stuff like counter fairies, which are pretty decent. You have the whole ritual engine of fairies. This of course being stuff like Herald. You have the angels like Benton, which can basically search anything. You have of course one of the greatest boss monsters ever printed, Christie, a 2800 attack. 2800 attack with the ability to stop your opponent from special summoning, which is just insane. You have stuff like Honest, which would protect that. Herald, of course, negates everything. Really good solid tools. Fairies have a lot of very good solid tools. You have the Star Seraph engine. You have also the artifacts, which are all fairies. You got to remember, fairies also won worlds. Agents won worlds. I forget the exact year. It might have been like 2010. I don't remember the exact year off the top of my head, but Agents, of course, did win worlds. You have stuff like Venus, which just spams monsters. Incredible for Link format. Yeah, but definitely fairies are a very solid type. Again, close to being S tier, but not quite there. I'd say just a little more support and they would be S tier. The most recent like good support that they got was Trickstars. Trickstars are all fairies, very good. They have like one card engine, searches out everything. Definitely a solid A tier. You got to remember how good A tier is. It's not S tier because S tier are usually going to be the ones that have been around the longest and have the most cards, the largest pool. But definitely fairies are very solid at A tier, very close to being S tier. All right, next up we've got insects. There are only 188 insects in the game, very small. I'm putting it in C tier. I really want to put it in D tier, but the only thing that is saving insects is really two things. Number one, Max C kind of just changed the game. It is without a doubt the best hand trap in the game. It forces your opponent, it forces their hand because they kind of have to end their turn. They can't keep playing and they just OTK them the next deck. Definitely the best hand trap in the game. But the only real if it was just that, then I'd still put them in D tier, because then they just have a decent monster. Insects have a lot of like small good support cards, but no cohesion whatsoever yet. But the thing that really puts insects over the top is Insectors. They won worlds. I can't really take that away from them. None of the D tier decks that I have picked out for this list won world. I don't even know if they could win a locals, to be honest with you. Like, they're that bad. But definitely Insectors won worlds. You can't contest that. I mean, they had 2 cards on the ban list for ages. Without a doubt, I have to leave Insectors in C. If it wasn't for insects in C, if it wasn't for Insectors, this would be a D tier type without a doubt. They could definitely use some work. Insectors just isn't enough. They need new stuff, definitely. And I know there's some new stuff coming out in the next Battle of Legends set, but without a doubt, insects need a lot of work, for sure. All right, next up we've got Dinosaurs. Dinosaurs, without a doubt, biggest comeback story of 2016. Dinosaurs kind of like changed the meta in 2016. This used to, without a doubt, be a D tier. Easy D tier. They had no good they had like a few decent good monsters that had no interactivity before with anything. Then 2016 came, or 2016 into 2017, and now I would put it very comfortably at a B tier. This is one of the greatest comebacks of anything. Fiend is also up there, but definitely this is kind of out of nowhere because Dinosaurs were one of the earliest types, and I don't even joke with you. I don't even know how Rex Raptor did anything. I mean, they sucked for such a long time. Even the structure that came out and still they just weren't that good for a very long time. And without a doubt, the newest dinosaur structure deck that came out changed everything. You have Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, which is just crazy. It attacks all your opponent's monsters. It's 3,500 attack. All you need to summon it is banish 2 monsters. It's like Chaos Emperor Dragon, but in some ways, honestly, it's better because it's stronger than Chaos Emperor Dragon. You have Oviraptor, which searches almost any dinosaur, which is kind of crazy on summon. And this is special or normal summon. You have, for a long time, you had Baby Cerosaurus, and you had in the deck Petite Pterodon, which were before kind of like garbage. You had no way to like get to them because you couldn't really destroy them. How are you supposed to destroy them? By card effect, not by battle. So they kind of sucked. But then you had stuff like Diagram, which lets you pop them in the hand, and suddenly they were a lot better. You have Miscellaneousaurus, which just got taken off the ban list recently. Very good card, protects your monsters, puts dinosaurs in the graveyard, lets you special summon a dinosaur from your deck by banishing stuff, kind of crazy. Additionally, you had Ultra Evolution Pill. I'm sorry, whatever the Evolution Pill, the good one is, where you banish random type and then a dinosaur, special summon something from the deck, just crazy. You had Coatlas, also an amazing card. Dinosaurs, amazing comeback story. One of the worst types for such a long time, and now they're actually at 4 minutes. And not only that, their type is an archetype, which is kind of crazy because you don't see that often. They don't even need an archetype. That's what's crazy. They just recently got an archetype in Dino Wrestlers, which has Pankotrops, one of the best side deck cards around. Lets you special summon a level 7 monster that's 2600 attack that you tribute quick effect to pop a card. I mean, it's just insane. Without a doubt, the last 2 years for dinosaurs have been exquisite. It is exactly what they needed. It is a very good job overall by Konami with what they did for dinosaurs. All right, next up we've got Reptiles. There are only 131 reptiles. Very easily D tier. This needs work. I mean, honestly, they need work. They have like not even that many archetypes. Their best archetype is Alien of all types, which have never been good. You have stuff also like the Venom, which has boss monsters. You got to give up your left toe to summon. It's like impossible. So yeah, without a doubt, they're D tier. They need a lot of work. Please, they've got to do something about this. It's definitely an interesting type, and I'm waiting for them to get something going for Reptiles. They have some good cards. You have King of the Feral Imps, which is a really good card. Basically, it's a rank 4 monster. You detach a material to search any reptile in the game. So you couldn't put that you can't make a rank 4 monster that searches like any dragon. You couldn't do that. You couldn't do a rank 4 monster that searches any spellcaster, because then they're actually dangerous. They actually have good monsters. The problem is you can search any reptile because all the reptiles suck. What are you going to search? Nothing. I mean, like, honestly, what are you going to search? So that's part of the problem. They have like decent cards. Another amazing card that they have is Snake Rain. You discard a card, send 4 reptiles from your deck to the graveyard. Just put that in any other type. Put that in zombies. I mean, serious. Put that in zombies, it'd be banned. It'd be banned day 0. Like, that's how crazy it is. You put that in spellcasters to be banned. You put that in dragons. They actually had something like that in dragons called Future Fusion. And, of course, it got banned because it was too broken. I mean, you put that in any other type and it's banned, but you put it in reptiles and it doesn't even matter because they suck so much. They don't have any good cards. It's like this setup. With reptiles, you use Snake Rain. You hope you draw a Monster Reborn. That's how bad they are. So definitely, and I'm not saying this because, I think these types are bad and I want them to stay bad. I want them to be better. This is something that they need to work on. Reptiles have sucked for 15 years. It's time. Stop printing warriors. There's 850 warriors. Please, just print some reptiles. Yeah, definitely, they definitely suck. They need work, without a doubt. All right, next up we've got fish. Oh, another disappointment. There are only 95 fish in the game, without a doubt. Without a doubt, this is a D tier. There are only 95 fish. So, okay, already they're starting at a disadvantage because, again, we talk about warriors, like 800-something warriors. There's a 95 fish, without a doubt. Huge disadvantage already. They have, here's how stupid we get, right? The only, the archetype that they really have is mermils, and they don't even have the good mermils. They have the bad mermils. They have the bad mermils because the good mermils are aquas and sea serpents. So they have the bad mermils. They also have sharks, and here's the worst part of sharks. The best shark is Bahamut shark. Bahamut shark is a sea serpent. It's not even a fish. So all of the bad sharks are fish. But the one good shark is a sea serpent. The one good shark is a sea serpent. How do they make this stuff up? You got to sit somewhere in a lab to come up with this stupidity. The only good shark is a sea serpent. So yeah, fish definitely need work. And one redeemable quality that they have is super ancient deep sea king. I think it's a 2 tribute monster. You can discard a card, summon as many fish from your deck, up to 4 fish, to the field. You know, it's like the craziest card. You read it and you're saying to yourself, wow, that's good. And then you think about what fish you're going to summon. You're like, oh, okay, now I know why this card is here. I don't know. First of all, it's on a 2 tribute monster. How the hell are you going to summon it? That's number one. Number two, you summon this thing out. You summon these fish monsters out. What are you going to do? Make a Bahamut shark, which is a sea serpent. And then what? You can't summon Totally Awesome. You know, where are you going to put it? It's also an Aqua. And in Link format, it's not as good. So, you know, what's your play? You make this Deep Sea King, you make a Miss Starboy, you summon a Bahamut Shark, and then you summon a Totally Awesome. That's your best play? That's the best play that a fish deck can come up with? And the thing is, Konami tried for a couple of years, like around XYZ format to make this good, and none of it worked. They made some fish that were like wind. That made no sense. Alright, so anyway, fish are a mess. Without a doubt, they need work. Them and reptiles. There's one more loser type in here that we're going to talk about. Without a doubt, I love talking about these loser ones. And again, I don't say this because I want them to get worse or because I just want to make fun of them, which I like to do, but you know what? I don't want to do it. I want them to get the treatment that Dinosaurs got, where Dinosaurs moved from D tier to B tier in just a year. I want them to get that kind of treatment because at this point, they're trash. Alright, next up we've got Sea Serpents. There are only 64 Sea Serpents in the game. This is one of the smallest in the game, and it's really old too, which is kind of annoying because for how old it is, you'd expect, you know, one of the newer ones to have less, but you know, it doesn't make sense, whatever. But again, just to reiterate, Bahamut Shark, which should be a fish, is a Sea Serpent, which is a decent card. You also have Mermills. A lot of the good Mermills are actually again, not fish, but sea serpents. The Atlanteans, which are some amazingly designed cards, really good. Again, they are sea serpents. In addition to that, you have one of the best rank 4s in the game, Abyss Dweller, which is also a sea serpent. Very good card. And of course, the last thing I will talk about with sea serpents is Bryonic. Again, another decent card. So for 64 cards, they actually have a lot of very, very good cards. Again, one of the smallest types in the game, way better than fish. Not even like fish, like these down here are unredeemable and really need support, but fish, I'd say Sea Serpent definitely have some good cards. They have some good archetypes. They have some good kind of in-between cards. Without a doubt, a solid C. Could use some work. Obviously could use some work. When you have only 64 monsters, even if 10% of Sea Serpent, even if 100% of Sea Serpents were good and only 10% of warriors were good, you would still have more good warriors than sea serpents. I mean, that's how embarrassing it is. Without a doubt, they need more support. All of these down here need more support. They just don't have a lot of cards. And Konami needs to stop making their pack filler warriors and start throwing in random sea serpents and stuff. But definitely a solid C tier. Could use some work, could move up. Hopefully they get some support. Alright, next up we've got Aqua. Solid B tier. Solid B tier without a doubt. Had some really good cards. Levier the Sky Dragon. Have cards like Totally Awesome, incredible card, one of the best boss monsters around. In terms of archetypes, you have frogs, which dominated the game several times. You had the frog FTK, and then that moved away, and you had the newer frog deck, which was just like Monarch frogs, and then you had, after that, you had the Paleozoic frogs, which Paleozoics technically don't count as aqua monsters, so they're traps, but they become aqua monsters as soon as they hit the field. Also, you've got their boss monsters, definitely very good. Very solid B tier stuff. Could move up, could use some work. Some of the Mermills are aquas, which is quite ironic. Again, more, better. There are better aquas. There are better aqua Mermills than there are fish Mermills, and they're mermaids. They're mermaids. They're half fish, and there's still there's more aquas that are better. So definitely a very solid type. Again, small number count, could definitely use some work. Could definitely use some new cards. Overall, pretty decent. Anything B tier and above, I'd say is pretty decent. Anything C tier is just, needs work. And anything D tier and below, I mean, doesn't get any worse. All right, next up we've got Pyro, another glowing disappointment. Only 114 monsters. I mean, you can't even get around. This is probably the worst type in the game. Like, fish and reptile are disappointments, but this one's a real disappointment. This is one of my all-time favorites, and like all-time favorites in terms of the design. I like the design. I think they look great. Like when the deck came out, I thought it looked amazing. It wasn't as good as the water deck, the legendary ocean deck, but I thought it looked really cool. I think these are some of the best designed monsters in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! In terms of how they look. They look very nice. The little flames. It looks great. But the problem is, I mean, their best card is Daigusto Phoenix. Like, Daigusto Phoenix. It's a card that fits into like 3 decks. Daigusto Phoenix. And then you have Royal Firestorm Guard, which is basically a Pot of Avarice on wheels for Pyro monsters, which sounds good on paper, but like, what deck are you gonna play it in? The only good Pyro deck is Volcanics. That is the best Pyro deck. Is Volcanics. I'm saying good. I'm only saying good because it's in D tier, and in comparison to all of the other deck and to all of the other D tier stuff, it's actually decent. So Volcanics is their best deck, but Volcanics aren't even that good. Volcanics might as well be called I Lose to Call by the Grave the deck. I mean, that's Volcanics for you. I mean, you activate, you send one scatter shot, they call by the grave, you're done. What are you gonna do? You can activate that for the rest of the turn. It's a burn deck that relies on graveyard setup. So that's Pyro. Pyro's a mess. Pyro, these 3 are a mess. They need to be fixed. They're just so bad. It's like, come on, just give them some good treatment. Again, they need the dinosaur treatment. They need to be changed drastically. They need to take one of the key things in their in their typing, right? Pyros, for example, they like to inflict damage. They need to take them, and they need to take them to the next level. Kind of like they took dinosaurs. Dinosaurs like getting destroyed and coming back as bigger monsters. Or they're like banishing from the graveyard, bringing out bigger monsters. Kind of that whole evolution that whole evolution sort of overall theme. They need to come out with some kind of burn deck that isn't broken, that has a small stall element that can actually do something with Pyro, because they haven't done anything with Pyro honestly since like 2008. Pyros have done nothing since 2008. And they did nothing in 2008. I'm just saying that they haven't. That's when they released some support for Pyros. I mean, yeah, they really definitely need some support. All right, next up we've got Thunder. Thunder was another stinker, by the way. Thunder would have been down here, possibly right here, for a very long time. But I would feel very comfortable putting Thunder into A tier. So for a while, Thunder, the only good card they had was Thunder King Ryo, but it was a very good card. They had Thunder King Ryo, was very good, stop your opponent from searching. They also had the plain Thunder Dragon, which was always a +1, easiest fusion in the game. Usually didn't fusion summon with it, but it was a +1. For a long time, you had cards that, discard one card, do this, discard one card, do that, which were very good cards. Like they had broken effect stuff like Lightning Vortex, for example. And you would use a Thunder Dragon, discard one, get a +1, discard the card. You didn't really lose anything for activating Lightning Vortex, so it made Lightning Vortex like a Raigeki. And a lot of different things like that, set up for chaos plays. But overall, they were just okay. They're probably D or C tier. And then for some reason, out of nowhere, and this is what they have to do with the bottom 3, Konami just decided, hey, you know what? We're just going to start releasing Thunder support. They made some Summon Summoner. They made some Skywolf stuff. But most importantly, they made support for the most random thing of all time, Thunder Dragons. And the support was actually good. It used fusion mechanics. In addition, it had all of the effects of Thunder King Ryo. It had built-in protection. It activated in the hand. Like, it did all of the things that Thunder cards already did, but just at a higher level. And they took them basically from a, very far, kind of D or C tier type all the way up to A tier. It's dominated the game for basically a year now. I mean, it's completely disgusting. It sets up boards that are just crazy. Thunder Dragons have kind of changed Yu-Gi-Oh! They've made people play cards that they don't even want to play because they have protection in the graveyard, so you have to get rid of them somehow. That's non-destruction, and then you banish cards in the graveyard to protect them, just to activate more of their effects, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, so they've done a very good dragon. I'm sorry, they've done a very good job with Thunders over the last I'd say year. Again, they've got their treatment that Dinosaurs got, and it's changed them immensely. All right, next up we've got another stinker. Rocks definitely need more support. There are 186 rocks, so there's more rocks than there are a lot of these other things, or some of these things, but not these. So they have a decent amount of cards, but again, they are just lacking. They have like a few good cards. I'm almost tempted to put them into C tier, but in reality, they really do need more support. They have a type like Trumid, and it's very okay. It's not like broken in any way. They have Rock Stun, which relies on Fossil Dino and stuff like that, but those decks lose to evenly matched so hard, it's not even funny. So you have stuff like that, which again loses to evenly matched. In general, I think rocks could seriously use some support. They have decent cards, like all of these. They have decent cards, right? All of these have decent cards, but really no no cohesion. I'd like to say. What's a really good card that they have? Block Dragon. Block Dragon is a broken card. It's basically like an elemental dragon, but for rocks. But the problem is rocks suck, which is the real big problem. So it's good in theory, but then you get around to actually using it, and you realize, oh, I'm playing it in this like weird rock engine. You have decent stuff like Gorgonic. I'm almost tempted to put this into C tier, but I'd say it's worse than all of the C tier stuff, and it's probably the best of the D tiers. But it definitely could use some work. All right, next up we've got plants. There are 164 plants. I'm putting them into B tier. Plants have some of those broken, like singular cards around, which is very good. You have to have those. So they have stuff like Lone Fire Blossom, which summons a plant from the deck, any level, from the deck to the field, which is just like, it's like mind-boggling how good that is. And then you talk about the targets. You have stuff like Gigaplant, which is probably the best Gemini monster. You have stuff like Glow Up Bulb, which is one of the best tuners in the game, because you can use it synchro summon it from the graveyard, synchro summon again, or you can use it link summon and then use it again and link summon again. And then you have one of the most broken token generators in the game in Dandelion, which it was already good in synchro format, and then they made it even better in link format because you can link with tokens, so you can Lone Fire Blossom into it, use it for link fodder, get 2 free tokens, and then use those tokens again. And if you can, it's not once per turn, and it's if it is sent from to the graveyard. If it is sent to the graveyard, it never misses timing, and not only does it never miss timing, but it can be sent literally from anywhere: hand, deck, field. Non-targeting destruction, targeting destruction. It doesn't matter how it goes to the graveyard, you're still getting the token, so it's kind of crazy. So those are the single cards that are really good. And then in terms of types, you have stuff like Sylvan, you have stuff like Trap Tricks, and you have stuff like Predaplants, which are more so of an engine, because it lets you get to Brilliant Fusion or Instant Fusion, whatever you want to get to. But still, very good. You can't really deny how good those are. So they have both good types, both good monsters and a few good archetypes. I'd say they could probably use a few more good archetypes. So right now, I'd say for now they are a solid B tier. All right, next up we've got machines. One of the biggest types in the game, 730 cards, 100% have to be S tier. They have some of those broken cards. They dominated I don't even remember a time where machines weren't meta. Like they had some meta relevance at all times. It's kind of crazy. So they start off at the beginning. They have Mechanical Chaser, which is like a tournament pack, you know, exclusive card. This card's like $50 a card. So that was crazy. And then Limit Remover comes out, which doubles its attack, which is already the highest. It is already the strongest monster, like normal summonable monster in the game, without any like stipulations. Because of course you had other stuff. You had other monsters like Boar Soldier, for example, that like lost attack if your opponent controlled cards, but then it couldn't attack if your opponent had. It was a mess. It was like 2,000 attack. It was a horrific mess. But you had Mechanical Chaser, which was a normal summon, normal monster with 1850 attack, and then you can activate Limit Remover, and then double its attack, which was crazy. So that was Mechanical Chaser. He was a beast. Then you flash forward a couple of years, Cyber Dragon comes out, changes the game completely, just completely changes Yu-Gi-Oh. You have Machine Duplication, which comes out, again changes Yu-Gi-Oh. You have Card Trooper. Every deck starts running it. The friggin' thing is a $75 card per card. Virtually every deck uses it because it puts 3 cards in the graveyard, becomes 1900 attack. When it leaves the field, you get to draw a card. It's a Machine Duplication target. How much crazier can you get? So Machine Duplication, so that changes the game. I mean, this again, this is probably actually might be the best type in the game. So anyway, we talked about Cyber Dragon. Later on, you have just think of a time where you were playing Yu-Gi-Oh and machines weren't good. So more recently, you know, Cyber Dragons have been extremely good. ABCs a couple of years ago, very good. Spirals, you remember playing Tier 0 Spirals with Machine Duplication? I mean, that was insane. You know, Quick Fix and Drone, you know, both at 3 with Machine Duplication, absolutely nuts. The fields that they used to end on were disgusting, and that was before the Nightmares came out. That was before the Nightmares came out. So can you imagine Nightmares and Tier 0 Spirals? Disgusting. So that was Spirals. That was about a year ago. Then you got to think about recently, like very recently, you have Orcust, which is one of the best engines in the game. Ends on a crazy board off of a bunch of 1-card starters. So that's, you know, Orcust is another machine type. Machines have probably always been good, and they've always been Tier 0, at least, like, or Tier 0, Tier 1, or Tier 2. It's kind of crazy. And they just have broken, like, individual monsters that everyone plays. For example, Jinzo. How long was Jinzo used? I mean, just think about how long that was. The entire beginning of the game. So they've been pretty dominant from the game coming out till now. They are probably actually the best type. They also have really good extra deck monsters, just like dragons. Like, dragons are good boss monsters. So, you know, any of these 4 up here could be the best. I'd say probably Spellcaster is probably the worst of the S tiers. But without a doubt, these 3 are probably some of the best. And again, there's like 700 machines, so you have a huge pool of cards. Which, you know, you compare it to something like Sea Serpents, which have 64, and all of these, which have less than 100, and you have a type that has 700 cards. I mean, how do you compete with that? And some of them were broken. They could have made Mechanical Chaser a fish. Alright, let's continue. Alright, next up we've got Psychics. There are 131 Psychics. I am putting Psychics in B tier. When they first came out, they were okay. You had a card called Mind Master, which was half decent, and it got banned. You've had a few others. There was the one that blocks. You pay 800 life points, it blocks an attack. It was also a tuner. That was a decent card. So Psychics at first, you know, they had like 1 or 2 broken cards. They were kind of weird. They were like, they made Psychics, and they were based around like paying life points. Then you gain back the life points. Then you have cards that you don't have to pay life. So when they came out, they were weird. But they cleaned them up a lot. You know, they had Psy Frames, very good. Quite generally, Psy Frames. You have all of the pilots of the Cosmo cards are all Psychic, which are really cool. You have Emergency Teleport, which is one of those broken searchers in the game, because it summons it to the field. It's even better. That's why it's limited to 1. So you have that. On top of that, you have Mech Knights, which were, you know, kind of meta-defining for a little while there. They were tough to play around. You really got to think, like, you know, I got to set this here, set this here. You got to play around the Mech Knights. Additionally, you had stuff like Ritual Beasts, which were half decent. They were kind of the other deck in They were the other deck in the Secret Forces. You know, they were half decent. But overall, they've got some good support cards. Overall, Metal Foes are another one just popped into my head there. So definitely a pretty solid type. I'd say B tier, and they only have 131 cards. So they could definitely use a little bit of work, but you know, I'd say save the work for the bottom 2 tiers. So definitely solid. They started off slow, but they really got cleaned up over the last little while here. All right, next we've got Divine. Divine is another D tier. It breaks my heart to say this. There's only 5 Divine monsters in the game. One of them is good, and that one is Raw Sphere mode. The other ones are Obelisk, Slifer, Ra, and Immortal Phoenix. And when you've only got 5 cards in your entire typing, you're kind of like working towards trouble. So yeah, they could definitely use some work. But I mean, I don't know if they can. Like that's the problem with this one. It's hard putting this into D tier, because in reality, it's actually it should be better than D tier, because with only 5 monsters, like a lot of people actually do use Raw Sphere mode, but Raw Sphere mode is really kind of a newer thing that people are doing. For a long time, people just use Kaijus, but Raw Sphere mode in theory is better than Kaijus, because it gets rid of 3 monsters. So overall, I'd say they need more support, but I know for a fact they're not getting any more support, because Konami has basically dropped the entire Divine type, and I just don't see new ones coming out in the future. I just don't see it. Like, they released Serpent recently, and he probably should have been Divine in all seriousness, because he was kind of like a god in the show. But they just, I guess, decided to make him a dark. Yeah, so I don't see a lot of new support coming out for this. They might make, you know, maybe a handful, maybe like a few more, 5, 10 more in the next few years, if they decide to give like some god card support, maybe like Slifer support, maybe like not like a Slifer Sphere mode, but like maybe like a Slifer Sky form or something like that, or a Slifer, you know, like a Obelisk ground, I don't know, like some kind of form. They might do something like that, but it's very highly unlikely, and it's very unfortunate because the type is so small. So this one is probably going to stay in D tier for all of eternity. I don't think that they're ever going to release any more support for this. All right, next up we've got Worms. Solid B tier. Only 53 monsters, which is the second lowest in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Would be the lowest if it wasn't for Divine, which Divine in all seriousness probably shouldn't count, so probably the lowest. For the amount of monsters that it has, it's actually really good. So you've got Yang Zings, right? Let's start the list. You have Tornado Dragon. You've got True Dracos, right? True Dracos, which dominated the meta for like 2 years, and it's still a very good deck. Masterpiece, of course, had to get banned, but you know, still a very solid anti-meta deck. You have True Kings, which is a whole different playstyle. You had Lithosaga, which is broken, lets you look at your opponent's extra deck and just pick out 3 cards and say, you can't use these. So that one was very good. And then you've got the lesser archetypes, which are still pretty solid. You've got Phantasmal Spirals, which is probably the cheapest and best anti-meta deck in the game. The whole deck costs you like $50, and it can, no joke, it can actually beat stuff like Orcust and, you know, whatever you're playing against. So you've got Phantasmal Spirals, which was a very solid archetype. And then you've got, I'd say probably one of the not so great ones, Metaphys, which has potential, but as of right now isn't that great. But overall, this is a very solid type. Well, for 53 monsters, it actually is pretty darn decent. I'd say a lot of the monsters, a lot of the worm cards actually rely a lot on the spells and the traps. So maybe that's what's kind of shrinking the overall size of the type. But I'd say it's pretty decent. It's pretty solid for the low amount of monsters that it has. All right, next up we've got Cybers. There are only 124 Cybers monsters, but remember, this is the newest type in the game, and it is definitely, without a doubt, on the upswing. They've already released like what, 4 decks? I think 4 decks for 'Cybers, which is kind of crazy. 4 decks, and I think they're planning to release more. So they've got 4. They've got the starter deck, and then they've got 2 structure decks, and then they have Salamangreats, which is kind of crazy. So Salamangreats already is a tier 1/tier 0 tier 0 archetype. So we can just off of that, you know, they're already better than all of these down here because they've got a tier 1/tier 0 archetype. But more importantly than that, they also have really solid, like, just individual monster stuff like Balancer Lord. Very good card. You have stuff like Dotscaper, Firewall Dragon, Trigate Wizard, which both, you know, which is Firewall is banned, as we all know. So they've got some very good, like, individual cards. They've also got Lady Debug, which searches Cybers monsters. I mean, it's limited to 1 now, so it's a little harder to get to, but still, it's, you know, it's really good. Additionally, you have Signet Mining, which searches a Cybers card, which is extremely good. So overall, for how recent they are, this is the most recent type in the game. They're already B tier, and I don't see Konami stopping making a lot of Cybers monsters for a while. I mean, they're probably going to be making Cybers monsters for the next, at a pretty, you know, accelerated rate for the next 3 to 5 years at least. But overall, that is the tier list. You know, it is a little depressing when you look at the bottom here and you look at stuff like Reptile and Fish and Pyro and Rock and realize that they've gotten less support than Worm and Cybers, which just recently came out. And it is kind of sad. Overall, what are we taking from this? Konami, please stop printing machines and warriors in your pack filler and Fiends, and to a certain degree dragons, but there's not as much dragons and spellcasters. But in general, please stop printing some of these types. I mean, there's so much pack filler. It's so easy to give a random dude a spear or a sword or a stick, and we haven't even addressed the fact that beast warriors and warriors are essentially the same thing, because, you know, if a dog stands up on 2 legs and you give it a sword, it's still a warrior. But in general, please give some support to Reptiles, Fish, Pyro, and Rock. Divine, I understand if you can't give any support to Divine, but please, these bottom types need some support too. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. It took me a while to make this video. A lot of thought went into this. A lot of research went into this. Please subscribe. It means a lot. We're trying to get to 1,000. We're trying our best. Thank you for watching.